In the world of crime dramas, the phrase "he stared at the abyss and the abyss stared back" comes to mind. Have you met the Grant family? Well, we have. We meet them in a perfect American setting, a picturesque neighborhood in Ohio where houses are nice but not ostentatious. Michael Grant is a guy who doesn't really stand out, a quiet dude who works at an accounting firm and keeps to himself. But then there's his wife, Claire. Where Michael is quiet, she is a social butterfly. She knows everyone and seems to be the center of attention wherever she goes. The perfect suburban couple, right? Well, appearances can be deceiving. Michael has his suspicions. He feels that something is off with his wife. And let me tell you, he's got good instincts because behind closed doors, Claire is living a double life. Now, this isn't your average tale. This is a story of deceit, obsession, and a side of Michael that nobody saw coming. The plot thickens when Michael starts noticing strange things. Claire is working late hours, going out with clients, and she's awfully protective of her phone. It's like she's hiding something. But Michael's not the nosy type. He respects his wife, or at least he says he does. But when you see your wife coming home late, smelling like cologne, well, it raises questions, doesn't it? And then those new clothes show up in the closet, clothes that don't look like Claire at all. It's like she's transformed into someone else. I know we live in a time where people talk about boundaries and respect in relationships, but sometimes, it can be hard to keep that in mind. Michael finds himself torn between his love for his wife and the nagging feeling that something is not right. Does he confront Claire? Does he dig deeper? You'd think so, wouldn't you? But nope. He lets his suspicions simmer under the surface. He puts on a mask and carries on like everything's fine. So why doesn't he ask Claire what's going on? Why doesn't he seek answers? Well, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. Sometimes our brains play tricks on us. Sometimes we see things where there aren't any. But in Michael's case, that's not what's happening. He's not just imagining things. Claire really is up to something, and the signs he's seeing are real. Now, you might think this is just another story about a jealous husband, but hold on. This is where things get interesting. Because what Michael is feeling isn't just jealousy. It's a mix of emotions, a cocktail of doubt, worry, anger, even fear. Fear. Why? Because deep down, Michael has this nagging feeling that he might lose his wife. And if that happens, he might lose a part of himself. He loves Claire, yes, but he also loves the life they've built together. The idea of losing both of them, well, that's terrifying. Meanwhile, Claire is enjoying her secret life. She's out late with her co-worker Aaron. There's chemistry between them, undeniable chemistry. They flirt, they laugh. There's a connection there that goes beyond work. And as the weeks go by, it grows. One day though, Michael snaps. He's tired of being in the dark, tired of not knowing what's going on. He wants answers. But here's the twist. When he confronts Claire, he doesn't find understanding. He finds anger. She lashes out, denies everything. And that's when Michael's suspicions turn into certainty. He realizes his wife isn't just working late, she's involved with someone else. And the thought drives a wedge between them, a wedge that widens with each passing day. And this is where the story takes a turn for the worse. Michael, once a quiet, unassuming husband, changes. He becomes someone we don't recognize. And here's the kicker. He doesn't just change, he turns dark. The Michael we know would have confronted Claire, maybe even considered separation. But this new Michael, well, he's consumed by rage and determination. And here's the question that's been haunting me as I read this story. Did Michael always have this darkness inside him? Or was it Claire's betrayal that brought it out? Think about it. We've seen cases where people are driven to extreme acts by betrayal, where the hurt is so intense it clouds their judgment. In Michael's case, he becomes obsessed with taking control. He wants to be in control of the narrative, to be in control of the situation. He knows Claire is cheating, but instead of addressing it head on, he hatches a plan. He plans to destroy everything, to hurt Claire, to punish her for what she's done. But let's step back for a moment. Let's look at this situation from Claire's perspective. Why did she cheat? Was she unhappy in her marriage? Was she seeking excitement or maybe just a bit of attention? Whatever her reasons, her actions have consequences. And those consequences will affect not just her, but everyone around her, including Michael and their families. The story is a tangled web of deceit, obsession, and revenge. And as I read on, I couldn't help but wonder, How far will Michael go? How much destruction will he cause before he's satisfied? This story isn't just a tale of betrayal, it's a study of human behavior. It makes you question what drives us, what makes us act the way we do. And let's be honest, we've all been pushed to our limits at some point. We've all felt betrayed, lied to, wronged. The question is, how do we respond in such situations? Do we take the high road or do we succumb to the darkness within? That's what makes this story so gripping. It's a reminder that we're all capable of great things, but also of terrible ones. It's a reflection of the darkness that can lurk in the human heart, even in the seemingly perfect suburbs of Ohio. And as I delve deeper into this tale, I'm reminded of the power of choice. Each character in this story has a choice to make, a choice that will shape their destiny. Will Michael choose anger and revenge, or will he choose to move on? Will Claire choose honesty, or will she continue to deceive? These choices matter because they define who these characters are, what they stand for. Now, I've reached the end of this segment, but the story isn't over. It continues to play out in my mind. And that's the thing about stories like this. They stay with us long after we've read them. They make us question our own choices, our own reactions. They challenge us to be better, to resist the darkness. As I close this chapter, I'm left with more questions than answers. What will become of the Grant family? Will their marriage survive, or will it crumble under the weight of deceit? Only time will tell. But one thing is for sure, this story isn't just a tale of betrayal. It's a tale of choices, of the darkness that can consume us and the light that can lead us back. As I reflect on this chilling narrative, one thing becomes abundantly clear. Michael Grant is not the man he once was. No, not anymore. Claire's infidelity has cracked him open, exposing a chilling emptiness beneath. It's a side of him that was dormant, hidden away in the humdrum of daily life, buried under the weight of routine and normalcy. But now it's awakened, growing like a dark tumor, feeding on the pain of betrayal and twisting his thoughts into something sinister. It's a chilling transformation, a descent into the depths of human darkness that leaves us questioning the very nature of obsession and revenge. What kind of person are you? How far would you go to protect your own? And when faced with betrayal, would you choose forgiveness or revenge? The clock ticked past midnight, each second echoing the muffled fear that filled the room. Michael's silence pressed against Aaron like a physical force, stealing his breath, crushing his arrogant composure. Sweat beaded on Aaron's forehead, mingling with the expensive cologne he wore, a futile attempt to mask his terror. As the minutes passed, his struggle became weaker, his body gradually succumbing to the binding ropes. Claire sat paralyzed, her eyes darting between the two men in the room. Her horror knew no bounds. She had seen the possessiveness in Michael's gaze, the chilling calm in his demeanor, but the stark reality of their situation hit her anew with every labored breath Aaron took. His face, usually so confident, was contorted with fear. His struggles, once violent, were now feeble, mirroring the diminishing hope within him. Michael stood up, his shadow falling over Aaron like a dark omen. He didn't speak, didn't need to. The silence screamed of his triumph, of his absolute control over the situation. With calculated steps, he moved towards the kitchen, leaving the moonlight to paint eerie shapes on the wall behind him. This was his domain now, his kingdom of pain and power. Aaron tried to call out, but his voice, hoarse with fear, wouldn't obey. He watched Michael disappear into the kitchen, his silhouette framed in the doorway, and panic clawed at his throat. Claire wanted to scream, to tear at the ropes binding her, to break the silence with a desperate plea, but fear kept her rooted to the spot. She had known Michael's love was fierce, had seen the possessive glint in his eyes on occasion, but she had never imagined this level of ruthlessness, this chilling blend of control and fury. The absence of sound from the kitchen sent shivers down her spine, the ticking clock the only witness to the drama unfolding in the shadows. The metallic clink of a gun being loaded shattered the silence. Aaron froze, his blood turning to ice. The casual click resonated through the room, stripping away any remaining illusion of safety. In that instant, the air thickened, the silence turning from anticipation to terror. Michael emerged from the kitchen, his silhouette stark against the light, a gun held loosely in his hand. The weapon glinted ominously, a grim reminder of the danger that hung in the air. The single click echoed again in Aaron's mind, pounding against his ribs like a relentless drumbeat. His eyes, wide with fear, locked onto the gun, willing it to be a phantom of his imagination. But the cold steel was real as the tremor in his voice when he croaked out a question. Michael didn't answer. He didn't need to. The gun spoke volumes, spelling out the consequences of their transgression. The silence that followed was electric, crackling with tension and fear. Each tick of the clock amplified the dread, turning the quiet room into a pressure cooker of terror. Michael moved closer to Aaron, his footsteps silent yet purposeful. He loomed over him, his face still hidden in the shadows, and the threat was palpable. He didn't raise the gun, didn't point it. Its mere presence was a threat enough. He leaned in further, his voice dropping to a low growl. The words hung in the air, raw and dangerous, a declaration of intent. This wasn't just about revenge or retribution. It was about complete control, about reducing Aaron to the same state of helplessness that he had caused Claire. The gun pressed harder against Aaron's head, digging into his scalp, drawing blood. A sharp pain bloomed, anchoring him to the spot. He couldn't move, couldn't speak. He was trapped in a nightmare woven by Michael's chilling determination. Claire found her voice, her scream echoing with terror. It was a primal sound of fear and desperation, a plea for mercy, for reason, for anything to stop the horror unfolding before her eyes. But her voice rang hollow in the face of Michael's grim resolve. Her eyes pleaded with him, searching for a flicker of humanity in the darkness of his face. The gun pressed harder, the metal digging into flesh. A thin line of blood trickled down Aaron's temple, staining his white shirt crimson. The sight of blood fueled Michael's determination. It was the tangible evidence of his pain, of his violation. And he wanted Aaron to see, to feel the consequences of his actions. Aaron struggled, not against the ropes that held him, but against the gun digging into his head. He thrashed, his movements wild, desperate, a futile attempt to escape the impending doom. His face contorted in a silent scream, his eyes bulging, pleading for mercy. Michael held firm, his grip on the gun unwavering. His stance was solid, his eyes fixed on Aaron. The silence stretched, thick with tension and dread, broken only by the frantic beating of hearts. Claire's terror knew no bounds. She wanted to lunge at Michael, to grab the gun, to do anything to break the cycle of pain. But fear kept her frozen, her whole body trembling, caught in the throes of a nightmare. The scent of gun oil and fear filled the air, mingling with the colognes of the two men. It was a cloying, suffocating blend that screamed of danger. Michael pulled the trigger. The gunshot ripped through the silence, echoing in the confines of the room. The report was deafening, shattering the stillness like a bomb. In the wake of the shot, the smell of gunpowder intensified, stinging their nostrils, blurring their vision. The air itself vibrated with the impact of the gun. The world narrowed to the immediate terror of the moment. The clock ticked loudly, mocking the stillness of the figure slumped forward in the chair. Michael lowered the gun, his face still shrouded in shadow, his expression unreadable. The silence returned, heavier now, laden with the echoes of the gunshot. The room, once tense with anticipation, was now still, the energy thick and heavy. Claire's scream died in her throat, her whole body trembling. The smell of gunpowder stung her nostrils, bringing back memories of war and loss. She could only stare horrified, as the full weight of what had just happened crashed over her. The finality of the gunshot shattered the illusion of any possible escape. The night that began with dinner and deceit had culminated in death and despair. The ticking clock no longer marked the passage of time. It sounded the death knell, a dirge for Aaron and a requiem for their shattered lives. Michael stepped back, his silhouette stark against the faint light. He moved with an eerie calm, almost serene, as if the gunshot had released a burden from his shoulders. The triumph in his stride was undeniable, evident in the set of his shoulders, the tilt of his chin. He had reclaimed control, had delivered justice on his terms. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the steady tick-tock of the clock and the soft thud of Michael's footsteps as he moved around the room. He didn't touch the body, didn't approach it. He simply moved, his presence a tangible weight in the room. The gunshot had silenced Aaron, but it had also silenced the tension, the fear, the anticipation. What followed was a stillness that felt alien, a calm that seemed to suck the very breath from their lungs. It was the quiet aftermath of a storm, leaving behind a wreckage of emotions and consequences. Claire sat frozen, her eyes wide, reflecting the horror of the gunshot. Her screams had been swallowed by the silence, her pleas by the finality of the shot. She could only stare at Aaron's lifeless form, his head slumped forward, a testament to Michael's chilling resolve. The air was thick with the metallic scent of blood and gunpowder. The room, once a stage for their twisted dinner, was now a crime scene. Michael moved with a chilling calm, his movements precise, almost surgical. He walked over to the table, picked up the box containing the rope and the hammer, and began to dismantle the bindings around Aaron's wrists. His touch was gentle, almost reverent, as if treating a corpse he respected. The sight was surreal, the contrast between the lifeless body and Michael's composed actions striking. He worked methodically, his face still in shadow, his expression unreadable. The ticking clock echoed in the silence, its rhythm slow and mocking. Each tick-tock seemed to emphasize the finality of the moment. When he was done, Michael stood back, surveying the room. The gun lay on the table, a grim sentinel, while Aaron's limp form slumped in the chair. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating, broken only by the distant chime of a clock somewhere in the house. Michael turned and walked away, leaving the corpse behind. He moved like a ghost, his steps silent, his form disappearing into the shadows of the hallway. The door closed softly, leaving Claire alone with the dead man and the echoes of gunshots in the dining room. The invitation went out and Michael waited, continuing to live as though nothing had changed. To Claire, there was no change. She hurried home, eager to talk about the events of her day, but Michael was quiet. He listened patiently, he nodded, he sipped his drink, but his eyes betrayed his thoughts. They were fixed, distant, as if he were seeing the future. Claire didn't understand it. She felt safer in his calm presence, believing the shield around his heart was intact. The truth was, Michael had long been aware of the affair. He knew the days Claire spent with Aaron, the dinners they shared, the secrets they exchanged. His world had shifted when he discovered the truth about that night, but he chose not to react. He knew the path Claire would take. He watched as she sought the connection she craved, lost in the labyrinth of passion. Michael observed Aaron, the man who had captured his wife's attention. He noticed the way she leaned towards him, the way she laughed at his jokes, the way she looked at him with a mix of adoration and admiration. Each of these moments was like a small death for Michael, chipping away at his resolve until he knew the only way forward was to confront the inevitable. Still, he resisted. He didn't want to face the pain of that conversation, the sting of betrayal, the harsh realization that their marriage was hanging by a thread. So he waited, hoping that time would bring clarity, that somehow the situation would resolve itself. But it didn't. Claire and Aaron continued their affair, growing bolder, believing they had successfully concealed their actions. Then it happened. One day, Michael found evidence of the affair. It wasn't a dramatic moment. No screaming, no accusations. It was a discovery that sent shock waves through his seemingly calm existence. From that point on, his life altered. He could no longer bear the sight of his wife without feeling a surge of anger. The mere mention of Aaron's name would send a jolt of resentment through him. Sleep evaded him as memories of the affair invaded his dreams. Each dream was a torment, a reminder of the betrayal that had penetrated their shared reality. Once, Michael considered himself a patient man. He had allowed their relationship to evolve gradually, understanding that love needed nurturing. But now patience was a luxury he couldn't afford. The knowledge of the affair had poisoned his world, turning the sweetness of memory into the bitterness of deceit. Then came the silence, a heavy blanket that muffled the sound of their betrayal. It wasn't an intentional choice, but a natural consequence of the emotional turmoil within him. He stopped asking questions, stopped sharing stories, effectively creating a barrier between them. He refused to let the facade continue, refusing to participate in the illusion of a happy marriage. Yet even in his withdrawal, he observed, he watched his wife's every move, her fleeting glances, her nervous energy, the half-truths she offered when questioned. Nothing escaped his notice. He saw the secret smiles she hid when she believed no one was watching, the stolen moments of happiness she cherished, the guilt she tried to bury. The irony was not lost on Michael. His wife, who once shone with warmth and laughter, was now shrouded in secrecy, her every action dictated by the hidden truth. The dynamic of their relationship had shifted. Their roles were reversed. Claire, driven by passion, danced in the sunlight of her illicit romance, while Michael stood in the shadows, patiently waiting for the perfect moment to expose the deceit. He knew the truth. He knew Claire's secret, and soon, he would use that knowledge to dismantle the fragile world she had built. The story of their love was far from over. It was reaching its climax, and when it did, It would be a spectacle of emotions. The calm before the storm was ending. Michael could feel it. And when the storm hit, it would be devastating for both.